Hello and welcome back to Focus Atlanta. Thanks so much for continuing to watch. We're going to close out the show with something very special. It is The Treasure You Seek, and I'm here with Archie Jones. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So great to be here.
Give me the history. Give me a little background. What is The Treasure You Seek?
The Treasure You Seek is my first book out just yesterday, so officially available all over the place as of yesterday. And it is an amalgamation of some leadership lessons. So the full name is The Treasure You Seek, a guide to developing and leveraging your leadership capital. I've had the fortune of teaching at the Harvard Business School since 2020. And so I'm really developing leaders. And so what's distilled in the books is some of those leadership lessons, what I call my 5 C's of leadership capital, to help leaders from all ilks, whether they're entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, achieve their dreams and go after their main goals.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think you just answered my next question, because I was thinking, who did you write it for after having so many students and having people, matriculate through the things that you've taught in the past? Who were you thinking about when you decided, I'm going to put this in a book?
Who I was thinking about is all of the leaders and even the aspiring leaders who I don't think may not ever make it to my classroom. We have a great time in the classroom. There's 90 plus students, a couple different class groups per year. And so that's a few hundred students from 30, 40 different countries. So certainly reaching globally. But what about all of those underserved, underrepresented leaders who may never make it to the Harvard Business School campus? And so I wrote it for them and have had a wonderful time sharing the lessons from it, not just domestically, but also abroad as well.
That is so inspiring, because I think that often when we think of business leaders, we think to some extent that they came to the table knowing all of the tricks of the trade, right? Like they came to the table with all of the confidence that they needed. They came to the table with all of the knowledge. And that's just not true. They need that background. They need that tutelage, just like the rest of us do. And this is kind of what you're doing.
And they need those, and they also need that reference source to go back to, because as you make what I call your leadership journey, because that changes over time as you go from a young professional starting out in their career all the way through to a seasoned and maybe soon to be potentially retiring or evolving professional. You need to go back to some of those basic lessons, some of the basic blocking and tackling around. And that's why I listed it as the 5 C's, capability, knowing and leaning into your superpowers, what that one's all about. And then culture, right? Remembering who you are and what you bring out of your heritage that's special to the table. And then communication, telling yourself a different story so you can tell the world a different story. And then also connection. Everybody needs to leverage connections in their network to really accomplish anything great. And then you already touched on the 5th C, which is one that we all continue to try and grow and mature with over time, and that's confidence. How do you face some of those fears to go after your goals?
Oh my goodness. Now, when you speak about the 5 C's, that can take so many different directions. It does not, it is not just for one particular entrepreneur. It is not just for one particular business owner. Each and every one of us can take the 5 C's and make success and turn, like you said, make some things that may have hovered around doubt. You can turn that around into success with the 5 C's. I love it.
You really can. And it's written for leaders more broadly. It's impacted both, as you pointed out, so everything from for-profit entrepreneurs to social entrepreneurs and even entrepreneurs, folks who are inside of large organizations or companies, but still having great impact inside of those organizations. So I think it's for everybody who has the opportunity to lead a team or lead a group of folks forward.
Well, congratulations. I'm so glad the book is out and that you've done this and you've brought this to us. Please close us out with a website where we can get the book, where we can learn more, where we can get it and buy it for somebody else.
Sure. All of my stuff, I've got a podcast as well, but all of my stuff is at archieljonesjr.com. You can learn about the book, the podcast, all our other programming, as well as get your way to some other resource sites.
Archie, it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for making time for us today on Focus Atlanta.
Thank you so much for having me. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. All right, guys, you too can take the next step in your business, your career and what you're trying to do. Entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. I love that. I love that you can do both. Take the opportunity to get the book and learn more. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in to this week's episode of Focus Atlanta. I hope to see you next Sunday here on WUPA.